She has walked out, your grace. Left him standing at the rail with the ring in his hand. Emery, Duke of Marlborough, had driven 9 miles through October rain to a wedding he had no business attending, carrying in his breast pocket a letter he had written 11 times and burned 10, and he was as he had been for 4 years, exactly too late. He said. The sexton pointed down the churchyard path to the Lich Gate and the Elverton Road beyond, where a woman in a grey travelling dress and a bonnet with no flowers on it was walking away from her own marriage at a very steady pace, in the rain, with a bandbox in one hand. Emery went after her on foot. He caught her at the bottom of the hill. She heard him coming and turned, and her face when she saw who it was went through several things very quickly and settled on something that was not fear. Of course, said Nerissa Ormerod, of course it would be you. Miss Ormerod, have you come to watch? You are a little late. The interesting part was in the church. She kept walking. Mr. Craven took my hand at the rail and leaned in and told me, very kindly, that once we were wed I was never to speak my father's name again in his house. Not to him, not to his mother, not to anyone. He said it was a small price for being made respectable. Her chin was up, so I gave him back his ring and I asked the curate to open the vestry door. Emery walked beside her and said nothing, because there was nothing on earth he was entitled to say. You need not follow me, your grace. I am not going to do anything foolish. I am going to the Barleycorn to take the 2 o'clock mail to my aunt at Sowerby Bridge, and I have £4 and a bandbox, and I have managed on less. Miss Ormerod, there is something I must tell you. There is nothing you can tell me that I have not had 4 years to learn. They came into the yard of the Barleycorn with the rain easing, and it was full market day, the mail coach standing, ostlers, 30 people under the arch out of the wet, and Gilbert Craven was standing on the mounting block in his wedding coat with 2 men beside him. One of them was the Elverton bailiff. Emery understood the whole of it in the time it took to cross the yard. There she is, said Craven, loud enough for the market. He was a heavy, prosperous, sweating man of 50, and he had been humiliated in front of a church full of people, and he had come prepared. Miss Ormerod, you'll want to think again. I have thought. Then think on this. He held up a folded paper and shook it. Your father's debts. £312 owing to the Marlborough estate these 4 years, and I bought the paper in July and it's mine to call. I'd have torn it up on the church step as a wedding gift. That's the sort of man I am. His voice thickened. You've made a fool of me before the whole parish. So it's the ring or it's the debtor's side of the county gaol, same as your father, and you may have 5 minutes to choose. The yard had gone very quiet. Somebody's horse shifted and blew. Nerissa Ormerod stood in the wet gravel with her bandbox and did not move, and Emery saw her look once at the mail coach and once at the arch and understand that there was nowhere in England for her to go. Well, said Craven. Then it is the gaol, she said. And Emery, Duke of Marlborough, heard himself begin to speak before he had decided to. Put the paper down, Mr. Craven. The whole yard turned. He had not raised his voice, but there is a quality certain names have in a market town, and his had it. Your Grace. Craven pulled off his hat, torn between deference and triumph. This is a private matter, sir, but I'm glad you're here, for it's your own estate's money. It is not. Emery came into the middle of the yard. He was aware of the rain on the back of his neck, and of the woman standing 8 feet away with her bandbox, and of 4 years pressing on his chest like a hand. That debt is a fiction, he said. There was no shortfall. There never was. Your Grace, the accounts. I know what the accounts say. I drew the information myself, in the year 11, and I laid it before the magistrates. And I did it in 3 days because I was 30 years old and newly come to the title, and I was determined that no one should ever say the new Duke of Marlborough was as slack as the old one. His voice was perfectly level, and it cost him everything he had. Thomas Ormerod was my father's land agent for 22 years. He was accused of taking £840 of the Marlborough rents. He did not take it. My father took it. Somebody under the arch said out loud, God above. My father took it in the spring of the year 9 to cover a gaming debt in town, said Emery, and he took more in the year 10, and Ormerod covered it in the books, quarter after quarter, out of loyalty, and out of the perfectly correct understanding that a land agent does not accuse a duke and expect to be believed. When I came to the title, I found the hole, and I found the man standing over it. He never said one word in his own defense. Not to me, not to the magistrates. Not in the 22 weeks he lay in the county gaol before the fever took him. Emery's jaw worked once. I have the whole of it in my father's own hand. I found it 4 months after Ormerod died, and I have carried it for 4 years, and I have not said it aloud in public until this moment, because a man does not like to stand up in a market town and say that he killed an honest servant to make his own name. The silence in the barleycorn yard was total. So, Emery said, turning to Craven, you hold no paper. There is no debt, there never was, and if you present that instrument anywhere in this county, I will meet you in Chancery and ruin you, and I shall not enjoy it any more than I am enjoying this. Give it to me. Craven gave it to him. Emery tore it across twice and let the pieces fall in the wet. And understand, he added, that the lady you have just threatened before 30 people is the daughter of the most honourable man ever to serve my family, and that every soul in this yard now knows it. Go home, sir. When it took him a moment to find the arch, Emery turned round. Nerissa Ormerod had not moved. The rain had stopped. She was looking at him with an expression he had no name for, and her hands, he saw, were shaking so hard that the bandbox knocked against her knee. 4 years, she said. Yes. You knew in March of the year 12. My mother died in the January of 13. She died believing it. Her voice climbed and she brought it back down by main force. I was turned out of every house in this county. I have been a lace runner and a shop girl and a school drudge, and I was 2 hours from marrying a man who wanted me silent. And you knew, yes. Why did you not say it? Because I am a coward, said the Duke of Marlbrook. And I have been one since I was 30 years old, and there is no better answer than that, and I have stopped looking for one. She took the 2 o'clock mail. He offered her the carriage and money and the letter out of his breast pocket, and she refused all 3 in the same flat voice, standing in the yard with the water running off the inn sign. I do not want your carriage, your grace, and I will not take a farthing from you as long as I live, and if you put that letter in my hand I shall drop it in the mud. So spare us both. Then, at the coach step, she turned. You did a right thing today. 4 years late, in front of witnesses, when it could no longer cost you anything but pride, I am obliged to you for my liberty, and I hope I never see you again. The mail went out under the arch at 4 minutes past 2, and Emery, Duke of Marlbrook, stood in the yard until it was out of sight, and then went home and began the only kind of courtship he was fit for, which was restitution. He did it thoroughly, because thoroughness was the one talent he had, and it was thoroughness that had killed Thomas Ormerod, and he thought it might as well be made to serve. He put the whole account in the county paper over his own signature, and had it read in 3 parish churches. He wrote to every family that had shut its door against her, 29 letters, each naming the recipient's own part in it. He resigned the commission of the peace on the ground that he was demonstrably unfit to sit in judgment on any man. He paid £840 and 4 years' interest into a trust in her name, which she did not touch, and he did not ask her to. And in the spring he had the old stone taken up in Elverton churchyard and a new one cut, and what was cut into it was this: Thomas Ormerod, land agent of this parish. He was accused falsely, and he did not defend himself, because the guilt was his master's. This stone is set up by the son of that master, who prosecuted him. He did not tell her about the stone. He wrote to her every month at Sowerby Bridge and told her about everything else, and she returned the first 4 letters unopened. She did not return the 5th, and Emery discovered in himself, at 4:30, a capacity for hope he had believed burned out of him entirely. She came back to Elverton in May to see the grave. He was told of it within the hour, 'cause half the county was in his employ. He went the next morning at 7, and she was there, sitting on the wall in a plain print gown with her back to the new stone, and she did not look surprised. They said you had it cut in March. Yes. You did not write to me about it. No, said Emery, it was not for you. It was for him, and for the people who walk past him on Sundays. If I had told you, it would have been for me. Nerissa Ormerod looked at him a long moment. Sit down, she said. You are very tall, and I am tired of looking up at you. He sat on the wall at a proper distance with his hat in his hands. I have read your letters, she said. All of them. I got the first 4 back out of the post office by lying to the postmaster, which I am not proud of. A pause. You are a terrible correspondent, Your Grace. You write like a man giving evidence, I am aware. 10 pages last month on the drainage of the Coombe. 9. It felt like 10. She was not smiling, but something in the set of her shoulders had eased half an inch. Then it went again. I am not going to forgive you. I want that understood before you say whatever you have come to say. My mother died of it. There is no arrangement in this world that gives me back that year, and I will not stand in a church and say that it is all mended, because it is not, and I have had enough of being told to be silent about my father for one lifetime. I have never once asked you to forgive me, said Emery. I would think less of you if you did. Then what do you want? He turned his hat over in his hands. To be useful to you, he said. That is all I have wanted since the March of the year 12, and I have made a hash of it every way a man can. If you wish never to hear from me again, you have only to write the word on a half sheet, and you never will. He made himself look at her. But since you ask, I will tell you the truth, because I have found that lying to you costs more than it is worth. I want to marry you. I have wanted it since you stood in that inn yard and told a man holding a bailiff's warrant that you would rather go to gaol. I know exactly what I am, what I did. I am not asking. I am answering the question you put. The rooks went over the churchyard. Nerissa sat very still on the wall. You are the last man in England I should marry. Yes. They will say I did it for the title. They will say every unkind thing. They will say it for a year, said Emery, and then they will look at that stone, and I should be Duchess of the house that ruined mine. You would be Duchess of a house that owes yours a debt it cannot pay, he said. I would rather you collected it in person for the next 40 years than have it forgiven. She laughed then. It came out of her without permission, cracked and wet and astonished, and she put her hand over her mouth as though she had done something disgraceful in a churchyard. Oh, she said, that is a dreadful thing to say. It is entirely sincere. That is what makes it dreadful. She looked at the stone for a while, at her father's name, and at the sentence underneath it that no duke in England had ever consented to have cut in granite before. Terms, she said at last. Name them. You never prosecute a tenant or a servant of Marlbrook again, not for debt, not for anything, without laying the whole of it before me first, and hearing the man in his own words, in my presence, and if I say the case is not fit, it is not brought. Don, said Emery, you did not consider it. I considered it for 4 years, he said, every one of them. And, said Nerissa, and her voice was not steady now, you will say his name, in your house, at your table, when there are 20 people there, and it is inconvenient. Emery got off the wall and went down on one knee in the wet grass of Elverton churchyard, in front of Thomas Ormerod's stone, which he thought on the whole was the proper place for it. Thomas Ormerod, he said, kept faith with my father when my father deserved none, and I hanged his name for it. I will say it at my table every day of my life if you will sit at the other end of it. She was crying. She put out her hand and he took it, and he did not get up until she pulled him. They were married in that church in September, quietly, with the tenants filling the back of it, and nobody in 4 counties ever said the unkind thing to her face. He kept his terms. There was never again a prosecution out of Marlbrook that she had not heard first, and there were in the end very few. He said her father's name at his own table with 20 people present, more than once, and let the silences fall where they fell. And to the end of his life the Duke of Marlbrook could be found on a certain October morning standing bareheaded in the yard, an indifferent coaching inn, because it was there, in the rain, with a bandbox in her hand and nowhere on earth to go, that his wife had shown him what a person was worth,